Then there's the question of what we shall pay him, she said. Dear Daisy tells us that he scarcely knows what money is, but I, for one, could never dream of profiting by his wisdom if I was to pay nothing for it. The labourer is worthy of his hire, and so I suppose the teacher is. What if we pay him 5 shillings each a lesson? That will make £1 a lesson. Dear me, I shall be busy this August. Now how many classes shall we ask him to give us? I should say 6 to begin with, if everybody agrees. 1 every day for the next week except Sunday. That is what you all wish? Yes? Then we shall consider that settled. Mrs. Quantock, still impotently rebelling, resorted to the most dire weapon in her armoury, namely sarcasm. "Perhaps, darling Lucia," she said, "it would be well to ask my guru if he has anything to say to your settlings. England is a free country still, even if you happen to have come from India." Lucia had a deadlier weapon than sarcasm, which was the apparent unconsciousness of there having been any, for it is no use plunging a dagger into your enemy's heart if it produces no effect whatever on him. She clapped her hands together and gave her peal of silvery laughter. "What a good idea," she said. "Then you would like me to go and tell him what we propose. Just as you like. I will trot away, shall I, and see if he agrees. Don't think of stirring, dear Daisy. I know how you feel the heat. Sit quiet in the shade. As you know, I am a real salamander. The sun is never troppo caldo for me." She tripped off to where the Guru was sitting in that wonderful position. She had read the article in the Encyclopaedia about Yoga right through again this morning, and had quite made up her mind, as indeed her proceedings had just shown, that Yoga was, to put it irreverently, to be her August stunt. He was still so deep in meditation that he could only look dreamily in her direction as she approached, but then with a long sigh he got up. "This is beautiful place," he said. "It is full of sweet influences, and I have had high talk with guides." Lucia felt thrilled. "And do tell me what they said to you," she exclaimed. "They told me to follow where I was led. They said they would settle everything for me in wisdom and love." This was most encouraging, for decidedly Lucia had been settling for him, and the opinion of the guides was thus a direct personal testimonial. Any faint twitchings of conscience, they were of the very faintest, that she had grabbed dear Daisy's property, were once and for ever quieted, and she proceeded confidently to unfold the settlements of wisdom and love, which met with the Guru's entire approval. He shut his eyes a moment and breathed deeply. "They give peace and blessing," he said. "It is they who ordered that it should be so. Om." He seemed to sink into profound depths of meditation, and Lucia hurried back to the group she had left. "It is all too wonderful," she said. "The guides have told him that they were settling everything for him in wisdom and love, so we may be sure we were right in our plans. How lovely to think that we have been guided by them. Dear Daisy, how wonderful he is. I will send across for his things, shall I? And I will have Hamlet and Othello made ready for him." Bitter though it was to part with her Guru, it was impious to rebel against the ordinances of the guides, but there was a trace of human resentment in Daisy's answer. "Things!" she exclaimed. "He hasn't got a thing in the world. Every material possession chains us down to earth. You will soon come to that, darling Lucia." It occurred to Georgie that the Guru had certainly got a bottle of brandy, but there was no use in introducing a topic that might lead to discord, and indeed, even as Lucia went indoors to see about Hamlet and Othello, the Guru himself, having emerged from meditation, joined them and sat down by Mrs. Quantock. "Beloved lady," he said, "all is peace and happiness. The guides have spoken to me so lovingly of you, and they say it is best your Guru should come here. Perhaps I shall return later to your kind house. They smiled when I asked that, but just now they send me here. There is more need of me here, for already you have so much light." Certainly the guides were very tactful people, for nothing could have soothed Mrs. Quantock so effectually as a message of that kind, which she would certainly report to Lucia when she returned from seeing about Hamlet and Othello. "Oh, do they say I have much light already, Guru dear?" she asked. "That is nice of them." "Surely they said it, and now I shall go back to your house, and leave sweet thoughts there for you. And shall I send sweet thoughts to the home of the kind gentleman next door?" Georgie eagerly welcomed this proposition, for with Hermy and Ursy coming that evening, he felt that he would have plenty of use for sweet thoughts. He even forbore to complete in his own mind the conjecture that was forming itself there, namely that though the Guru would be leaving sweet thoughts for Mrs Quantock, he would probably be taking away the brandy bottle for himself. But Georgie knew he was only too apt to indulge in secret cynicisms, and perhaps there was no brandy to take away by this time, and lo and behold he was being cynical again. The sun was still hot when, half an hour afterwards, he got into the open cab which he had ordered to take him to the station to meet Hermy and Ursy, and he put up his umbrella with its white linen cover to shield him from it. He did not take the motor because either Hermy or Ursy would have insisted on driving it, and he did not choose to put himself in their charge. In all the years that he had lived at Riseholme he never remembered a time when social events, work he called it, had been so exciting and varied. There were Hermy and Ursy coming this evening, and Olga Bracely and her husband. Olga Bracely and Mr Shuttleworth sounded vaguely improper. Georgie rather liked that. Were coming tomorrow, and there was Lucia's garden party the day after, and every day there was to be a lesson from the Guru, so that God alone knew when Georgie would have a moment to himself for his embroidery or to practise the Mozart trio. But with his hair chestnut-coloured to the very roots, and his shining nails and his comfortable boots, he felt extremely young and fit for anything. Soon, under the influence of the new creed with its postures and breathings, he would feel younger and more vigorous yet. But he wished that it had been he who had found this pamphlet on Eastern philosophies, which had led Mrs Quantock to make the inquiries that had resulted in the epiphany of the Guru. Of course, when once Lucia had heard about it, she was certain to constitute herself head and leader of the movement. And it was really remarkable how completely she had done that. In that meeting in the garden just now, she had just sailed through Mrs Quantock as calmly as a steamer cuts through the waters of the sea, throwing her off from her penetrating bows like a spent wave. But, baffled though she was for the moment, Georgie had been aware that Mrs Quantock seethed with revolutionary ideas. She deeply resented this confiscation of what was certainly her property, though she was impotent to stop it, and Georgie knew just what she felt. It was all very well to say that Lucia's schemes were entirely in accord with the purposes of the guides. That might be so, but Mrs Quantock would not cease to think that she had been robbed. Yet nothing mattered if all the class found themselves getting young and active and loving and excellent under this tuition. It was that notion which had taken such entire command of them all, and for his part Georgie did not really care who owned the Guru, so to speak, if only he got the benefit of his teachings. For social purposes Lucia had annexed him, and doubtless with him in the house she could get little instructions and hints that would not count as a lesson. But, after all, Georgie had still got Olga Bracely to himself, for he had not breathed a word of her advent to Lucia. He felt rather like one who, when revolutionary ideas are in the air, had concealed a revolver in his pocket. He did not formulate to himself precisely what he was going to do with it, but it gave him a sense of power to know it was there. The train came in, but he looked in vain for his sisters. They had distinctly said they were arriving by it, but in a couple of minutes it was perfectly clear that they had done nothing of the kind, for the only person who got out was Mrs Weston's cook, who, as all the world knew, went into Brinton every Wednesday to buy fish. At the rear of the train, however, was an immense quantity of luggage being taken out, which could not all be Mrs Weston's fish, and indeed even at that distance there was something familiar to Georgie about a very large green hold-all which was dumped there. Perhaps Hermy and Ursy had travelled in the van because it was such a lark, or for some other tomboy reason. And he went down to the platform to investigate. There were bags of golf clubs, and a dog, and portmanteau, and even as the conviction dawned on him that he had seen some of these objects before,